But right now, we're gonna go live. Studio B. To the point, it's tricky. He was saying that I got special guests on your way. It's all right here. I'm not even going to give them yet, MDR. Ladies, I'll be with you until 2 o'clock. But in the meantime, frozen. I get another station. Not even going to but here we are.
Here?
Yeah, it's
Oh, that's what's up.
Thank you, Lady Cherie. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. I am Keelan Sanders. I will be co-hosting the To the Point tonight. I want to thank you for again tuning in. This is election season, and with this show, we really want you to open your ears and really listen, but also take action. We have a lot of things going on in our state legislature that is very important and honestly could be detrimental to the citizens of Jackson. But one thing about it, we always got to personalize it with Jackson, but we have to look at it that the ramifications can go and will go statewide. We're basically the test kit for a lot of things that's taking place right now with the Republican leadership, with want to pick apart the rights and privileges, but also what's been put in place by the Constitution for the state of Mississippi to where citizens or municipalities can govern themselves.
Absolutely.
So with that, I also want to welcome and definitely want to turn it over to my fellow co-host, Ms. Felicia Tripp.
Thank you, Keelan. Thank you. We do have a very special guest in the house tonight, Representative Zakiya Summers. Representative Zakiya Summers is going to be joining us tonight. And we have some information that is absolutely critical to get out, guys. House Bill 1020, House Bill 1020. We're going to be talking about that, guys. And also, and it's actually related. We're going to be talking about the need for police reform. We're going to be talking about how what happened in Memphis will actually touch us here in Jackson. All of this ties together. Capitol Complex bill. We've been talking about that for quite some time. So again, we're here tonight. State Representative, House District 68, Zakiya Summers is here to break it all down for us and let you guys know how you can make a difference. So, hello everyone.
Hello.
Hello. How you doing, Joanna?
I'm good. I'm good.
Very good. Very, very
Sorry,
good.
I'm late.
Oh no, it's okay. Somebody's late and somebody else is on time. Somewhere. Somebody said that. Maybe. I don't know. But so, Keith, I know that this is a very passionate topic for you. He's been taking his time, talking slow, so he doesn't get too crunk tonight. But I want to allow our Representative Summers to introduce herself for those who may not know her. Most of us do, but please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much, and good evening to the panel. Good evening to the listeners. It is always a joy to be back home at 90.1 WMPR, the voice of the community. I am Zakiya Summers. I serve as state representative for House District 68. My new map, according to redistricting that we passed last session, encompasses West Jackson, Pearl, and Richland. So I've had a few changes to my map. I have qualified for re-election. I will be on the ballot in August and November, and I have had the honor of serving and representing House District 68 for the past 4 years and look forward to serving them for the next 4 years. In the legislature, I have been fighting for access to the ballot box, greater access to the ballot box, ensuring that we protect voting rights. I've been fighting for education, access to health care, as well as appropriation dollars that will directly benefit District 68. And we'll continue to fight on behalf of those citizens, not just in House District 68, but all across the state of Mississippi. And the topic that we're going to be talking about tonight is so poignant, because while it does target the city of Jackson, it really could open the door for any city in the state of Mississippi. And so everybody should be concerned about House Bill 20. So again, it's a pleasure to be here. Look forward to engaging in the conversation and really getting folks engaged so that they know how to mobilize and get activated against this bill and be in preparation for our elections this year.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Now, Zakiya, meeting you out in the community years ago was actually around subject matter similar to this. You guys who don't know, Zakiya's been a long time community activist and advocate out here, and she's been very much a part of her community in West Jackson and beyond. As she just stated earlier, as this bill affects Jackson, so it affects all the rest of us. Actually, not just within the state, but beyond. So this measure, which by all accounts, and Keelan, you can correct me at any time, it's several elements of this just deems unconstitutional. So if our rights can be violated in such a way here in these United States, what is it to stop anyone else's rights from being violated? Now, this topic, in the midst of, again, what happened in Memphis with the death of Tyree Nichols, a lot of people will look at things like police brutality that results in death and simplify it simply to Black versus white. But I know that, again, community activists and ground stompers such as yourself know that this has been a systematic issue, hence the cry for police reform. But the problem has been, while we want to make sure that Black and brown people are not disproportionately targeted through actions like what we saw, we also have the need for safety in our community. And it's my fear that the lack of attention that has been paid to that is what's going to make a lot of people accept what I deem as a form of slavery through legislation. Mm-hmm. So I'd like for you to speak to that.
Well, first of all, my condolences to the family of Tyree in Memphis. The video was very heartbreaking and traumatic to watch. But I also have to place that in the context of what's been going on right here in our backyard. Mm-hmm. And we've had several officer-involved shootings where a couple of the members of our community have died as a result of that during encounters with the Capitol Police. And so the concern around House Bill 1020 allowing the Capitol Police to enforce the law within those boundaries would also lend to folks who live in that area not having the ability to elect and then therefore hold individuals accountable that would be responsible for prosecuting those cases. In addition to those cases, any cases where the state of Mississippi is a party in the matter would also be given to the judges that are appointed by the Chief Justice within that district. Of course, public safety is a top concern for all of us. We want all citizens to be safe, not just the people that live in the Capitol Complex Improvement District, but the people that live where I live in the bottom, the people who live in South Jackson. That's a top concern for us. But if we are to establish this new system, and I call it a separate but unequal system, judicial system in the city of Jackson, then the other individuals that live outside of that district, what happens to them? What kind of public safety, what kind of accountability do they receive just because they don't live within that district?
Right.
The other layer to this is that we've spent a lot of time giving justification and reasoning to the individuals in the establishment that doesn't have our best interests at heart to do these kinds of measures and push these kinds of measures. We get on radio programs and we talk about local elected officials. We talk about individuals in a very negative way. And we don't show support towards each other, realizing that we are not each other's enemy.
Right.
We should be finding ways to work with each other and support each other and not perpetuate a narrative that lends to why we have Republicans and conservatives in the legislature pushing things like HB 1020 and other measures that have a clear target on the city of Jackson.
Well, would you say that it is the narrative that would you say that the negative conversation about elected officials, wherever it goes, would you say that lends to the narrative more than the actions? Because we're right here in a city where we have numerous issues. We have many issues, and some of those we know is due to the misappropriation or lack of appropriation to funding to the city of Jackson in an equitable way, as it is throughout the state. But we also know that we've had issues like police killings right here within the city, as you just pointed out, with Capitol Police and also JPD in some cases. Some justified, some not, based on the situation. But we have a city council and a mayor who have consistently argued about a garbage contract in the midst of that, while the murder rate has consistently gone up. Do you feel that maybe it's not this or that, but rather this and that? And how do we have people be accountable in the midst of that? Do we perpetuate an image that is false by proclaiming unity, or do we hold people accountable? And how do we achieve both?
I think it's a both and argument, but I think that when you have all media outlets located in the city of Jackson, you're going to constantly hear and see all of the negative things that are happening in the city of Jackson. And as a result of that, folks who live outside of the city of Jackson use that to justify their actions to continue to marginalize people that live in the city of Jackson. This is not to say that there is an excuse for our perhaps lack of action or inaction or lack of accountability for those that represent us. But what we can't do is fight against each other and then allow that to justify what we're saying in the state legislature.
Right. Well, much like with the police, we define the actions that are taking place as being a systematic thing. So would you not say that perhaps that there would be the same thing with our elected officials who are not in fact advocating and representing for those who look like them? Because the majority of the elected officials on the local level are Black. The majority of the citizens are Black. So if in fact we aren't being represented in the right way, how again do we paint a picture of unity and happiness when it in fact is nothing that's going on that is a representation of it?
I think we have to understand that the system is systemic. The system that has been designed that we take part in is doing exactly what it's designed to do. And the way that we counter that system is to dismantle the system. But by fighting against each other, we are actually giving we're giving more strength to the system for the system to respond and react in the way that it is. If we take a look at House Bill 1020 and the fact that it is constitutional and will disenfranchise majority Black citizens that live in the city of Jackson, then we are again allowing the system to respond and therefore take away our rights for us to hold those individuals accountable that we put in position to represent us and carry out the actions that give us a greater quality of life. We have an opportunity to change course. We can do that when we go and vote in our elections.
Yes.
But what we have seen and what we've witnessed, and I've seen this, since I've been an election commissioner, is a continuous decrease of voter participation.
Right.
And we have a decrease of voter participation because we say that we are not seeing our vote count. We are not seeing the things that we anticipate or expect our elected officials to do, but we're also not participating in that system. And so if HB 1020 were to move forward, then that will again continue to decrease our opportunity to change course and elect individuals that we believe and expect will help us to do better, to receive greater results and outcomes in the city of Jackson.
Absolutely. For me, I think that, again, part of the lack of advocacy for people has been a contribution of the apathy that people feel, not just for voting, but just for the system as a whole. Now, with House Bill 1020 being a very pressing issue and on the minds and mouths of people right now, as this is a hot topic, why do you think up until now the Capitol Complex bill hasn't been anything of a major topic, when indeed all the signs were there, but many of our representatives actually went along with that bill that was proposed by a Republican who doesn't even live in our area?
Yeah. So the CCID came about before my time that I was in the legislature. And it was framed as an opportunity to provide some funding that will help with our infrastructure within that boundary. What we've seen, unfortunately, is a step-by-step, bit-by-bit opportunity to really create a city within a city. Mm-hmm. So I think it was the 2021 session, we passed a bill, and I was on the floor really fighting against that bill to put the Capitol Police under the Department of Public Safety. Mm-hmm. Because I realized that once the Capitol Police were under DPS, they would have arresting authority and everything else that comes with law enforcement, right? I mean, Capitol Police initially was essentially security guards for state-owned property.
Right.
And so that led to what we are experiencing now, which is a greater level of law enforcement. And the thing that is kind of a push and pull for me is that, I receive calls from constituents who like to see the Capitol Police. They like to see the roadblocks. They like to see the increased law enforcement in their neighborhood. And they say, well, we want this because this will ensure our public safety. When all the data shows that over policing communities actually does not make a community more safe. It actually provides more criminal activity in that community because you end up, putting people through the criminal justice system and, other things that begin to be outcomes as a result of that in terms of, recidivating, et cetera. And so that has led to an effort to really, as I said again, put a target on the city of Jackson to now where we could potentially see a whole new court system within the capital city separate from the folks that we elect, in addition to some other legislation that will pull funding away from the city of Jackson towards this area that will continue to, perpetuate poverty in the city of Jackson. Right.
So you mentioned the data, and you're absolutely right. All the data that I've read indicates everything that you said. But on the flip side of that, and again, we want to look at all sides of things, because I want to say up front, this is a bad bill. It needs to be fought at every end. And people do need to call their legislators and let them know this is not right. But on the flip side of that, the data also indicates that safe cities, based on quality of life, simple things like cleanliness, also contribute to a lower crime rate as well. So that is where our elected officials play a part, and that's what hasn't been done. Blighted property also contributes to crime. And so with the consistent increase of crime, as you stated about how people get the perception of what's okay, there's also been the perception that people want to be safe. But there's a perception that Jacksonians are not worthy of protection from elected officials, whether it be on the city, on the municipal level, the county level, and even the state. And on the state, of course, we know it's different. We know that the Republicans outnumber the Democrats. Mm-hmm. So there's that level of it. Okay, so the anti-Jackson mindset is definitely outnumbered in the state capitol. However, on the municipal level, as well as the county level, there's not that, we don't have the complexion of protection, even with those who have our complexion. So again, that adds to the apathy component of it. So how do we educate people, but also encourage them to participate on both sides when they're getting hit from all sides of the fence?
Well, I mean, at some point, Felicia, we're going to have to say enough is enough. You know,
Yes,
the foolishness has got to stop.
yes,
We can't have people that, you know, we've elected sit in these positions, fuss and fight,
Mhm.
and help to support the narrative that ends up harming us in the end.
right,
And we know that we have our own set of constituency in our districts
absolutely,
that love us, that support us. They are ride or die
yes,
voters, and we appreciate them. But we also have to do what my mother used to tell me: you got to be able to see the forest for the trees. You know, you can't see the forest for the trees because we get stuck on these minute aggressions and distractions instead of looking at the bigger picture, what's going to help the city of Jackson and Hinds County as a whole. And because we have not done that, because we have not created and developed a vision, a direction that everybody can align with, we end up going our separate ways. And then that causes this narrative that ends up harming us from state legislation.
So I want to say this, and then I do want to turn the mic over so somebody else can jump in. But I want to ask. A lot of elected officials and appointed officials as well do take they have an issue with, like you say, local radio hosts or local radio shows that may paint a negative picture, so to speak. But for those that aren't going toward positive or negative, but rather truth, and if that truth paints a negative light, should they be focused more on what someone is saying about them or rather what they're doing? And how do we get them to understand that their paid positions are positions where they are supposed to advocate more for constituents? And as a constituent, I can't see me going out and waving a pom pom for you when I know that lights are out and that contributes to my lack of safety, while you spend money on a plaque for someone that exceeds the cost of the light. So how do we get to balance that scale?
Well, that sounds like a very direct situation. You know, but what I've learned is that, you know, everyone in leadership doesn't necessarily know how to lead. There's a difference. You know, just because you're in position doesn't mean that you understand what it actually takes to be a leader. And I think that, you know, while we have what we have until we can go back to the ballot box to, you know, alter that or continue to support that, we have got to hold and call our elected officials out to the things that we believe would be in the best interest of the community. In those instances, it may even take the constituents to develop what the vision looks like.
Yes.
And say, you know, to our elected officials, this is what we need, this is what we want you to do. How can you support this effort to benefit our community or to increase our community? That takes some time, but I wonder what it would look like if we spent 30 days. You know, we got February 1st is tomorrow, which begins Black History Month.
Yes.
Which is 28 days. Which is 28 days. What it would look like if we spent 28 days of not talking about each other, of not demeaning each other, and not saying what people aren't doing, but supporting each other and talking about the great things that are happening in the city of Jackson and the wonderful attributes of our elected officials.
So for those who are at home and depend on listening to television and radio for information, how do they know what's going on? And again, I really kind of lean away from saying talking about or negative when this is not about the individual person. It's just about what they're doing in their position for most of us, or at least for this show. We'll just stick with to the point. Anyway, but so as opposed to it being talking about the individual, how is it not okay to literally paint the picture of what they're doing? It's kind of like if a child were in school and they brought a gun. Should that not be brought up? Should we just talk about the A they got the week before, give them a hug, and hope they don't bring back the gun? Or should indeed this be talked about and handled?
Mm-hmm. Well, what I find from my colleagues across the aisle is that, they don't always necessarily agree with each other, but when they come out of the room, they are on the same page. And what I find with us is that not only do we disagree with each other, but we're going to call you out every chance that we get, which does not help us. That is not helping our plight. That's not helping our situation. And so I think that we have to think of a different strategy, because what we've been doing apparently is not working. What we are up against right now is a separate court system that's going to be created in the city of Jackson. What we're up against right now is a water regional board that's going to take away operations of the water department from the city of Jackson. What we're up against right now is all the money that's being raised for the 1% sales tax will be taken away from the city of Jackson doing infrastructure projects and only focusing on the water sewage system, excuse me. So we got to find a different way.
I agree.
Because
we're also up against being reactionary instead of proactive.
Absolutely.
Because the Capitol Complex bill absolutely painted from the beginning exactly what we're seeing.
Right, which is why I talked about the importance of the vision and the direction. You can't.
So does it fall on the citizens, or does it fall on those elected to do that?
I think we're all responsible. Instead of placing blame, we're going to have to accept accountability.
Well, what does accountability look like? Is it placing blame, or is it, in fact, accountability leads to someone? So who's truly accountable for that vote?
Well, the elected officials are representative of the electorate. And so when you think about it that way, we're all accountable for the city of Jackson.
But we don't press the button for them, though. And I mean, even with the garbage contract, I believe that a lot of what you're saying is absolutely on point. But I don't think that we can defend the indefensible, and the childlike behavior that's going on between these elected officials cannot be excused by saying because the citizens don't support them, or even these radio stations don't support them. They can turn the radio off and Facebook and still go to work and do what they're supposed to do with proper representation.
Yeah. So I've been in communications for a long time, and based on my background and my expertise, I know that the way that you frame the message is important. And it's not necessarily about defending someone. Sometimes it's about affirming the message. So I'll give you an example. On yesterday, I was in the Washington Edition community meeting, and I talked about the need for having a PR campaign, a whole citywide campaign around littering and cleaning up our city. And one of the titles of the campaign was "Stop Trashing Jackson." Well, if you say "Stop Trashing Jackson," then people are immediately going to think about trash. But if we say something like, "Let's team up to clean up Jackson," then you're giving an affirmative message instead of perpetuating the negative message around the city of Jackson. So it's not necessarily about defending someone. It's about how can we affirm them by providing them the information that they need to do the things that we want to see them do.
Right. So, and again, just for instance, all the lights have been out on Bailey Avenue Bridge for quite some time, and several other places. Is there indeed a message that I need to affirm to tell someone the lights should be on and darkness should not be ensued? Or perhaps should they not have the wherewithal to do their jobs and keep these things afloat?
Well, that goes back to education, because I don't know that the individuals that you're talking to have responsibility for those lights. It could be the energy company that's responsible for those lights.
No, not in this case. But I mean, I actually did the research. But in case their budgeting is a problem. So if you create a budget for the fiscal year, but halfway through the fiscal year, that what you budgeted for is gone, that in itself shows that an ineptness to lead in itself. So how do we again hold people accountable when we don't hold a checkbook?
Well, I don't have all the answers to the questions that you're asking, and I think those questions should be pointed to the individuals that are not doing what they need to be doing. But I do know
But that
that
comes with telling
I
the
do
people
know
on the radio that they're not doing it.
I do know that you are very resourceful and you have relationship with folks like me. And so, you never take no for an answer. If there's someone else that you think can accomplish the thing that you're trying to get accomplished, then you reach out to them. You can give me the information. I can see how I can help you on that specific project.
Well, you do, Zakiya, but there are others. We're not calling names. But
was there a call? Oh, the call.
I want to break down House Bill 1020 and really give people some of the pieces of it. Is there a particular piece you want to dive in on?
Well, not necessarily the individual bill, but just the connotation of it as a whole. Right now, we have an assault that's taking place on Jackson, and not only this House bill, but there are several other bills that are in the works. It started with the Capital City Improvement District, where it was a means of saying that, okay, we're trying to help you, but really it was just a dagger to try to take the city out. Mm-hmm. It's one that the fight, not only with this particular thing, but it's also with the airport. It's a number of things that you will take the call.
Okay. You're on air with To The Point.
Hey, how you all doing? This brother Willie, I've been holding for a good minute there. I'm enjoying the show, and I just want to say Zakiya Summers, she's doing a nice job explaining the situation. And another thing I want to say is everybody has two eyes and they can see. Even a blind man can see. And I pay taxes. I'm quite sure every other homeowner, renter, whoever that drive a car pay taxes in this city. And everybody should be outraged on what's going on, because this is not nothing but a scheme to take over, because the fact is that almost $1 billion is coming in here trying to help with the water and the infrastructure. And these conservative white folks see whether they can stick their hands in and steal money. And all at the same time, black folks, they know we're not going to get out and vote. But the bottom line is that people don't understand your vote is your vote. And so that's the only thing we have to fight with. You can't just sit around waiting for somebody else to do something for you. You're going to have to get out there and go vote. Because what they doing now, this mess that they got going on now, this 1020 bill, that's unheard of. Why they all of a sudden come up with it when you got almost $1 billion of federal government money coming in here to help this city?
Thank you so much.
All right.
Well, we have to point out it's definitely not only a money grab, but it's about power and control of the city.
That's right.
It's been when the city became a majority minority, then the plan was in place to figure out how to then regain control of the city and some whatever means that are in place. Now, unfortunately, as a whole, because we're looking at it with the state legislature coming in and doing so, our leadership when it comes to statewide has not been in place to really organize to ensure that we have the numbers in place to give a valid or a strong effort of fighting or defense. And what I say that is, we have at least, and I was looking at the numbers between the House districts and the Senate districts with opposition that in terms of being filled. There are at least 11 House districts that are competitive, and at least 5 Senate districts I think that I'm looking at because of we're looking at the BVAP numbers, or am I?
Vice versa.
Okay, vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, there are numbers or districts out there that can actually be winnable and can help shift the numbers to give more support and voice to the majority of the minority of us. When I say that, right now Mississippi technically, it's what 55% white, give or take, and 45% minority. Well, we don't always have an accurate census numbers when it comes to that. And so with that, it's always about trying to control, but also give a sense of the power is not where it's supposed to be. And the power truly is when we vote, we exercise our power. But we're not voting and exercising the power that's there. We're letting the minority, which is actually viewed as a majority, control all of us.
To be honest with you, Keelan, it's really like Zakiya and you just pointed out. We have the power to change a lot of things that are happening, but we continuously allow a particular narrative to be what controls us. Because here's the truth. White people do argue. White people do talk about their politicians. Lord knows George Bush got clowned quite often by the white comedians that I watch. But here's the difference. White constituents hold them accountable and let them know what they want for their community. And they will vote them out. And there's a difference. We have more of a loyalty to a name than they do. They have more of a sense of this is what we need for our community. Okay, so that is also part of the problem. They recognize what we will and won't do, but our own elected officials often do too. But the real buck stops with self, because all of these things that are being done are indeed just another form of slavery. People think just because you get to go to a job and get paid that you can't be within it. Anytime there is an attempt to strip your rights, that is indeed what it is. This is truly taxation without representation. Because I don't care if they are black or white. I don't care if they are Republicans. Their job is not just to be a Republican and vote together, but rather represent what is right and represent the Constitution of the state and the United States. And even though the Constitution needs to be changed, nothing in it would make what is going on legal based on what I've seen. And I'm not an attorney. But basic rights are being violated. And the mayor of Jackson was indeed right. This is indeed an attempt to ensue an apartheid-like structure right here in the United States, right before our very eyes. So the power is within the vote. But what we can't allow is people to come in and say, don't look at this when black on black crime occurs. Please don't start that stupid narrative. Please don't do that. Crime is based on proximity everywhere, whether you're black, white, Latino, whatever it is, it's based on that. And poverty is the actual factor that we need to be looking at. So why is that the case in so many areas? They're helping to create more fish bowls of poverty also with this bill. They're increasing the numbers of people that are going to be in prison with this bill by trying to turn this into a police state. Now, I know that everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants to feel like the numbers, no, not feel like, everybody wants the numbers of murders and shootings to go down in Jackson and anywhere else where you are. But we cannot allow that fear and that narrative to be what allows you to give up your rights willingly and with a smile on your face. I'm going to take the next call, or maybe we won't.
And just want to point out that even with the statistics that they've been putting out, the crime rate has gone up everywhere.
Everywhere.
Jackson is not immune to this, or is not a special case. The smallest of towns, the crime rate has gone up. But the whole narrative is just trying to put the focus on Jackson as the big bad, whatever immunity or sovereignty that the city has in terms of what's been given to it under the Constitution.
Mm-hmm. And let me also add to the conversation that the response from the conservatives to crime is always more police.
Mm-hmm.
It's always more law enforcement. And we support our law enforcement. At the same time, the members of the Jackson Hines delegation, as well as members of both caucuses and the Black caucuses, have been putting forth legislation for years that would impact criminal activity, that would help to increase the city of Jackson by tearing down dilapidated housing, many of which is owned by the state,
Yep.
by providing appropriations to youth development programs, by saying that we need education fully funded, by saying that we need greater access to health care. All of these things play a part in a person's quality of life. If you are being educated at the level that you need to be, if you are well, if you're healthy, if you're able to work a job that's not at $7.25 an hour and be able to provide for your family, if you're able to have access to childcare so that you can go to work and workforce development programs, then you're not going to participate in criminal activity because you are a productive citizen that's taking care of yourself and your family. These are the kinds of things that we've been shouting from the mountaintops that we need legislation and appropriations to support, but we have not gotten the support from the supermajority Republican legislature to get these things passed. Yet we use the narrative of crime as the new Jim Crow to come in and take over the city of Jackson.
Absolutely.
Well, they always have the red meat issues that they want to put out there to justify whatever action that they're trying to take.
That's right.
Okay, we're gonna take this call. You're on the line with To The Point.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking my call. You guys have a very interesting topic tonight. And I just want to say, man, I look at our leaders sometimes, and as nice as they are, a lot of them just ain't capable. They don't have the expertise. They don't have the business background. They don't have the skill set. And sometimes you just got a good man in a position that he can't handle. And I think too often that's where we fall short. And so when you look at Jackson and all of his shortcomings, with all of his issues, crime, and flooding and potholes and water issues and everything on top of it, the people that live in Jackson are just fed up. And they're okay with whatever happens. If it's a takeover, as bad as it may be, it might be necessary. You know, I would hate to think that, but we've had black leadership the last 25 years.
So,
We thought Harvey Jones.
let me ask you a question, sir. Mississippi is the 50th in the nation. So instead of looking at Jackson within Mississippi, let's look at Mississippi within the nation. This has been a Republican majority state for quite some time and always a white governor. So do you think that perhaps that's a problem?
Well, I don't know.
Lowest in education,
Hold on.
lowest funding, white Republican. But when you see that with some black leadership, blacks are the problem, but not whites. I just want to be clear. Could it possibly be who we elect, maybe? Because you sound like you're black. Do you think that you are indeed ineffective?
Well, what I'm trying to tell you is my point of view is that when you compare their leaders to our leaders, a lot of their leaders are bankers, or former attorneys, or developers, or skill sets.
So you have many white elected officials who didn't even get their GED, but go ahead.
That's all. We got a problem. And I'm just trying to nail it down how I think it is. And so, for whatever reason, we ain't getting nowhere. And they wouldn't have taken over. And so, I think the state may be fed up with your leaders. They may be fed up with the foolishness. You know, we thought Frank Wilson was going to be the new savior for Jackson. And they look at Jackson like it's poor and broke and deadbeat. And we go save it however we can. And that's their thought process. I'm not saying that's right or wrong.
No, it's wrong.
But our responsibility is on us. And so when you get clowns down there like a handful of people that we got leaked up, and they lining up to run again. And so it's very evident that we can't run and manage.
No, not we. The ones who you've elected.
Don't take offense.
I do because I'm black and you just cloaked me. So I do take offense. But I also want to point out the person who was just over the state crime lab, who was white, was allowed to retire, who was found with porn and allegedly porn and dealing with little children. Does that sound like an impactful, effective, good person who, by the way, even before they allowed him to retire, even under those circumstances, they were all the way backed up in the first place. And they're still backed up in their white lead as well. I could go on forever.
Well, I'm concerned with us, man. And you got to balance.
You're concerned with us, but you just said how we can't lead. That's slavery mentality in itself, and that's why House Bill 1020 is acceptable to you.
No, all I'm trying to tell you is, man, we can't see the forest for the trees. Now, you got a crime, even one else talking about stuff ways that they don't like he's a dog. And then when the white folks get together and pile up against him, and we contribute to it. Not to let him
You just said he ineffective and black. You just said black people can't lead. Chokeway black.
Yeah, I didn't say he could lead. I didn't say he could.
So
that
black one can, but the rest of them can't. Which ones can and can't? I mean, you just closed us out.
Let me just say this right here. See, that's why we can't even have a civil conversation.
Don't
be so defensive.
I'm breaking down what you're saying. Let's really look at what you're saying. You just said it's okay. You just said black people can't lead, but you just got mad at somebody who said a black person can't lead. I'm just trying to figure out which way we're going here.
Well, all I can tell you is, man, you get up, you leave out this studio and take left or right and look at the condition of where it is.
Well, I'll be looking at the forest instead of the trees.
I'm just telling you, you can get mad and feel it how you want. We have a serious problem. And I don't blame, white folks, yeah, they buried their mother, but they left here 30 years ago. And well, not all of them, no, of course not. But we've had one black mayor, one black leader after another. And we still in a wretched condition in this city.
But you live in the state of Mississippi that's in a wretched condition.
Well, if I may, caller, and listen, I appreciate your comments, and you know I empathize with you, and I feel you, because I live in the neighborhood right in in the proximity of WMPR, and I represent this area, and I have those same concerns. I want to live in a place where my children feel safe to come out and walk down the street and go to Jane Avenue Park and play basketball instead of hearing gunshots. So I hear you and I feel you. I think that we have to really broaden our perspective and understand that while we have had black leadership for the last 2 or 3 decades, we've had white leadership for much longer than that. And it wasn't until black leadership got into place where we began to see the drying up or the taking away of resources and literally an intentional attack on areas that are led by black people. They didn't believe that we would have a bench with a majority of black judges. The bench, the judiciary, is where we seek justice. And so the effort with HB 1020 and others to take away justice from black communities that are led and represented by black people is a part of the system that causes us to say, well, we'll take whatever that we can get. What we have to do is to demand that we deserve better. Not only that we deserve better, that we're going to have to take a deliberate approach to ensuring that we receive better. We've got to go to city council meetings. We've got to go to board of supervisor meetings, school board meetings, election commissioner meetings. We've got to come to the legislature. We have to be visible and present, and we have also got to vote. The last election that we had, I think we had maybe a less than 10% turnout, which speaks to where we are as a people in the city of Jackson. If we want attention, we want resources, we want effective leadership, then we have got to turn out the vote. The other thing is that we've got to begin to create and build a pipeline of individuals that can run for these offices. And I'll take accountability for that, because I am an officer of the State Democratic Party, and we have not been intentional and deliberate in identifying individuals and training them up as the other party does to be able to run for these offices. And as a result of that, as you said, caller, we do get people in office that really don't understand the responsibilities of their position and what they are to be able to do according to the statutes and the Constitution that tells them what they're supposed to be doing in that particular elected official. The last thing that I'll say is, why is it okay for the state of Mississippi to come in and do what they're trying to do in the city of Jackson? They wouldn't do this in South Haven. They wouldn't do this in Hattiesburg. They wouldn't do this in Gulfport and Biloxi, but it's okay for them to do it in the city of Jackson because this is a Black majority city with Black elected officials, and we won't stand up. Well, we have the opportunity to stand up, but we have allowed this to happen for so many years that it's gotten so bad to the point where they say, well, we're going to use that to justify what we're doing. And they end up using the things that we're saying about each other and against each other to create these separate systems that will disenfranchise the very people that live in the city of Jackson.
I don't really think it's that they use what we say against us, because they have their plan in place anyway. But by them, the way that they use it is by getting people to think that this is acceptable. You know, hey, this is a better hell than what you already have, is what the picture is being painted. Like, and I appreciate the caller calling, but it was borderline nonsensical what he was saying, as he spoke out both sides of his mouth, to say that all Black people, no Black leaders are effective, yet a Black woman attacked the Black mayor. Things like this is just talk. But as far as being real and looking at things that are tangible and applicable, knowing what your elected officials are doing is very important, and not continuing to elect them based on loyalty, whether they are Black or white, and understanding that just because whoever you're represented by, including the governor, needs to be held accountable. In some kind of way in this, we can talk about municipal government, we can talk about county government, but to hold state leaders truly accountable is not happening. And I'm not talking about the Senate and legislators. Why does no one blame the governor or lieutenant governor in anything?
Well, I got to push back on what you're saying, Felicia, because they do use what they hear and what they see to justify what they're doing.
They were going to do it anyways, Zakiya. The white people who have that plan, so-called conservatives.
Perhaps they were, but we make it easy. We make it easy when we're on top news stores and when we're on media outlets perpetuating that narrative. We make it easy. We say, well, the people in Jackson don't like it either. The people in Jackson don't like the leadership crime either. The people of Jackson want to feel safe, but we don't see the bigger story. We don't see the bigger design in the system.
But it's almost in a sense like saying that if the children behave, then the parents will do right by them. You understand? The elected officials need to do right regardless. And maybe they will, indeed, them acting right with each other will be the encouragement of less people having that conversation. It's frustration. And I feel that it is a dangerous precedence to set that we should just be happy and acceptable. The only thing sometimes we have is our voice. And whether it's on this microphone or social media, that's it. But it would probably change if indeed people weren't arguing about a garbage contract instead of working together on the simplest of things. And because the worst media indeed is the news media, and it's been acceptable for them to only focus on that.
Yeah.
But none of them reported about that crime lab lead who had kiddie porn. I heard it nowhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we should be using our voice in a way that's going to move the needle forward. And I think that while we're using our voice, that needs to be a tactic that supports whatever the direction is. And I don't think that that's happening right now.
Well, I'll point out one thing. When we say using our voice and exercising our right to vote, if the numbers that we have in just Hinds County alone actually participated, we can shift the statewide outcome of an election.
Yes.
And with having that power, then they will realize they shouldn't mess with Jackson, because now we're actually doing what we're supposed to do in terms of dictating how an election is supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
But when we lay down and do not exercise our vote, and basically take that apathetic approach about it, then they're saying, okay, well, we can do what we want because we don't have any repercussions, because they're not going to affect the statewide election as they should. Mm-hmm. And because they don't know what power they have, we can do whatever we want and have our way.
Mm-hmm. But I do agree with you, Zakiya, that we do have to paint a different narrative. But we also have to be willing to come to tables on both sides of it, whether it's media, whether it's community advocates or activists and elected officials. We have to be willing to come to tables where even if someone called you a bald-headed sissy or whatever the case is, if your job is indeed and your goal is indeed to move toward the area of the needle that you mentioned, we got to be able to go above that, above the roasting fest, past all of that to actually get to some solutions, because it is indeed creating a legalized and legislated form of slavery by us just sitting back allowing it to happen. This apathy has become something even deeper, and I don't even know what the word is to really encompass it, but it is a sickness. Mm-hmm. It's truly a sickness that we are suffering from at this point.
Mm-hmm. It is an epidemic. I mean, I think we're dealing with a public health crisis when it comes to not just dealing with COVID, but also the crime issue. And I hope and I pray that we can get to a point where everything is not so personal. Everything is not just an attack on you as an individual, but it is viewed and seen as a way to where, on both ends, seen and viewed as a way to where we can improve each other towards a greater end.
Absolutely. Tell people what they can do.
Yes, so we need your help fighting this bill. Again, it's House Bill 1020. You should certainly go to the legislature's website. You can read the bill. You can go on my social media. You can just search on Facebook or any social media platform, HB 1020. You will see videos that talk about the harms of this bill. We need you to get educated and understand exactly what this bill could do in the city of Jackson. And then, of course, we need you not to call Democratic legislators, because we are all united against this. We need you calling Republican legislators, Speaker of the House specifically, because the bill right now is on the House calendar. And you can call the state capitol at 601-359-3770, 601-359-3770. Even if you can't talk with him, leave messages for him and for other Republican legislators in the House and tell them that you want them to vote no against this bill, because if the precedent is set on 1020, where is it going to happen next?
Absolutely. And if you live outside of Jackson, even if you live outside of Hinds County, call your representative, because as Representative Summers stated, if it can happen here, this law will apply elsewhere as well.
The bottom line, definitely call the Speaker of the House, but call any Republican representative to voice your concern and your opposition to the bill. And what I mean, any and every Republican representative that's there, they need to hear from a citizen to say no, vote no to their on the bill.
That's right.
Blow the lines up, and you can check out Representative Zakiya Summers' page to get information, phone numbers, and more information about this bill. We need to start calling tomorrow, and we're going to close out. We have an announcement. She's been quiet the whole show.
Mm-hmm. I've been listening.
Well, come on, give everybody an announcement.
I've been listening to you all, enjoying the discussion, but this is bittersweet because I've enjoyed being a part of. Told you I don't like cameras. I've enjoyed being a part of To the Point for the last year or two now. And so today I did go and sign up to run for Hinds County Justice Court Judge, District 4. So I'm asking District 4 to get out and vote for me. August 8th, that district is South Jackson, Byron, Clinton, and Raymond. And so again, Joanna Archie, we ran this race before in 15 and 19, and we came really close. And so we're going to run this race again. And I ask for your support. Thank you all.
Well, we're gonna miss you, but
I know I'm gonna
look forward to
cry.
seeing you at the finish line.
I know I'm gonna cry.
And on that note, your final time signing off.
Joanna Archie.
I am Felicia Tripp.
I'm Keelan Sanders.
And I'm Representative Zakiya Summers.
Peace. See you guys next week.